and welcome to this episode of the new season 5 of the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and sometimes guests, as we have Dan Rodrigues today, talk about digital topics, including the world of online communications and digital inclusion, in a show which was the brainchild of digital storyteller, the late John Popham. So, Dan, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Yeah, hi Pauline, hi Sweyn. Thanks so much for letting me come on your show. I'm really excited to finally be on it. We've talked about it for quite a long time.
Yep. Great to have you here. So we do a weather check usually at the beginning. How has the weather been this last week where you are, Dan? Where are you?
I'm in Birmingham, not a million miles away from you,
Hmm.
and it's a beautiful crisp entering winter season, isn't it?
Mm.
And my wife's not letting me put the heating on yet, so I'm a bit cold.
Yes, well, I'm sitting next to a heater, I have to say, so it's very nice. And yes, it's kind of the sun is kind of trying to get through up there somewhere. And I've been in Ireland for the weekend, so it was lovely there. And I swam in the sea, so I'm feeling
Oh.
really, very proud of myself. That's probably the last time this year, but yeah, good. And Swain, how are you? And how's the weather been where you are this week?
Well, as usual, I'm in Kirkwall in Orkney, and it is bright, and even more excitingly, it's calm. So that's
Mm,
unusual for us.
nice, very nice. Okay, so as I say, we're delighted to have Dan on the program with us today. But we'll go through some of the usual dates and events that we have, and then we'll come on to our interview. So please bear with us, Dan, while we go through those. So, Swain, do you want to take it away with the dates?
Sure. I will start with a date that we found called Media Kindness Day 2024. Now, this was listed as being on November the 13th, but actually, I found out since it's on the 9th. However, on the 13th is World Kindness Day, so it all kind of holds together anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And Social Media Kindness Day, I always try and mark this one because it's one of the things that our founder of the program, John Popham, was very keen on and wanted to promote. And it's an annual event dedicated to promoting positivity, empathy, and kindness in the digital world. And it serves as a reminder that we should be using online platforms to spread love, support, and encouragement rather than negativity or hate. It encourages individuals, organizations, and influencers to make a positive impact on social media by practicing kindness and respect. So, as I say, it's observed each year on the 9th or the 13th of November, and that's that one.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Uh, and the second one's not unrelated. It's we've it's sorry, I can't speak today for some reason. The second one I found was Anti-Bullying Week 2024, which we're in the middle of. And it's organized, highlighted, run by the Anti-Bullying Alliance. Um, and this year its theme is Choose Respect. Um, and this has come about following consultation with teachers and pupils by the Anti-Bullying Alliance, which operates in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, but I'm sure Scotland could join in too.
Mhm.
And teachers and children wanted a theme that empowered them to do something positive to counter the harm and hurt that bullying causes. And I thought this was related because quite a lot of
Mm.
the issues that there are in for young people and in schools are around social media these days. So
Mm-hmm.
these two things are related.
Yeah.
Um, and the point of the week is simply to try to highlight the fact that bullying takes place and try to do something positive about stopping it.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, we have International Week of Science and Peace, which is an United Nations um, week, and I'm just checking if I shared the right thing there. I don't
Yeah.
think I have.
No, you have. Yeah.
But I have good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this was first observed during 1986 as part of the International Year of Peace, and there are events and activities undertaken throughout the week. The Secretariat for the International Year of Peace was formed, and this week was uh, adapted to become International Week of Science and Peace. So those
Mm.
are our dates for today.
Mm. Great. Interesting ones to pick up. I'm just reading through the rest of the blurb. encouraging greater academic exchanges on a subject of universal importance, while also generating greater awareness of the relationship of science and peace among the general public. Great.
Yep.
Okay, and then some events that we've picked up. The 11th to the 14th of November is Africa Tech Festival, providing a 360 view of how tech and strategy evolution is reshaping Africa's diverse industry sector. Sorry, Sweyn, I think I forgot to put a link in for this one.
Don't worry about it.
From
I meant to ask
telecoms,
you.
financial services, healthcare, government, SME and startups, retail, manufacture, and beyond. And they say to expect world-class speakers, industry-leading content, 2 international exhibitions, and outcome-driven networking focusing on how tech integration is delivering real-world impact through enterprise excellence and socio-economic development. And they've been running for 27 years. We will put a link in on the YouTube when we have it up on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I found it now. It does exist.
Okay, cool.
Moving on.
The next event, 12th November, tomorrow, is an event as part of Cambridgeshire DigiFest, Saving Time with Generative AI, Insights for Small Charities. And this is live online training aiming to showcase how generative artificial intelligence can save time for small charities and community groups. Participants will gain hands-on examples and clear guidelines to confidently incorporate these technologies into their daily operations. I think I've seen a lot of these kind of events going on around the country. Great to see. We ran one ourselves, actually, Digital LNS recently. This one, I mean, they're concentrating on the charities in Cambridgeshire, but it's good to see it's happening and people can learn from each other what they're planning. And the last event is one from India, November 15th and 16th, the Digital Citizen Summit in Hyderabad in India. And this is organized by the Digital Empowerment Foundation and the Centre for Development Policy and Practice, their 6th Digital Citizen Summit in 2024, organized by a synergy of technology and social innovation experts, serving as a platform for bringing together a diverse and dynamic gathering of scholars, academics, practitioners, civil society organizations, and government representatives who share a profound interest in technology, digital citizenship, and social innovation. And this year's summit focuses on the critical theme of algorithms, AI, and accountability. The blurb says that artificial intelligence in India is being promoted across various sectors such as healthcare, education, governance, and transportation to boost the economy. However, its development and implementation intersect with layers of power, often excluding marginalized communities from decision making. For instance, the blurb says algorithms have unfairly marked areas with higher Muslim and Dalit populations as unsafe, leading to over-policing. Welfare automation has also resulted in false positives, excluding genuine beneficiaries. Communities remain passive recipients of these technologies and policies, lacking agency in data governance. So to reflect on these issues, Digital Empowerment Foundation, in partnership with the Centre for Development Policy and Practice and the Government of Telangana, will be hosting this Digital Citizen Summit. So it sounds like something we can all learn from. It's we like to include events happening not just in Europe but in the rest of the world to show what's happening around digital, so we can learn from each other. So good to have it. Great. So now we come to welcome our guest, Dan Rodrigues, who I've known for years, and finally have him join us on the show. Welcome, Dan. Dan is the Digital Skills Advocate and Client Relationship Manager at IN4.0. Up until this year, Dan ran his own technology recruitment business, which supported scale-ups across Birmingham and the West Midlands. Only last month, though, Dan decided to fully jump into the digital skills work. Over the past 5 years, alongside his recruitment business, Dan created a CIC called the Brown Muse, which was dedicated to empowering young people from disadvantaged and underrepresented backgrounds to be connected to the digital and technology world. As someone passionate about education, technology, and inclusive economic growth, Dan sought to bridge the skills gap by creating opportunities for underrepresented communities in the tech industry, much like we try to do as well to some extent. Before joining IN4.0 group, Dan worked in various roles that allowed him to combine his love for technology with his drive to make a positive societal impact. His experience spans areas like workforce development, tech education, and building partnerships between businesses, training providers, and local communities. In his new job, Dan is part of a forward-thinking team that is transforming the digital skills landscape across a number of unique programs. His focus is on driving initiatives that prepare individuals for the future of work through innovative boot camps, internships, and upskilling programs. Dan's particularly excited about work with underrepresented talent, empowering diverse communities to build careers in digital industries, and helping businesses unlock the potential of a diverse workforce. Dan, we're delighted to have you on the show. Thank you for everything that you've done so far and everything that you're about to do.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you a secret, and it's not. I'm not going to raise it as a negative, but I got ChatGPT to help me write that. And I know there were
Uh-huh.
some things on Gen AI we're going to be talking about. I'm sure, I've no doubt.
Mm,
But I'm a massive believer in how can we use it to automate some of the mundane tasks we have to do on a regular basis that can help us. Do you know when you've got that sort of foggy brain and you're just like you need a
mm,
bit of a prompt? So
yeah.
I'm not saying you should do it to do your homework or to replace your job. What I'm doing, what I'm saying is that you can sometimes use it for inspiration and
Yeah.
to really help with coming up with some new ways of thinking and writing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a digital pal. I visiting friends at the weekend and their son was writing an essay for university. So I asked him, whether he'd used ChatGPT to kind of give him some ideas, and he said no, he'd used it, well, any AI, he had used it to sort of spark some ideas, and then he was able to develop them in his own writing. And then I suggested when he finished his essay that he ran it through ChatGPT again for duplication, any kind of places where he had contradicted himself, and etc. And people are finding it handy for that sort of thing, and I think
Mm.
that's great if people are aware of the possible downsides of putting your information into AI. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and you probably
absolutely.
know more about that than I do because you're more technical than I am. But we kind of we've seen each other most recently at Birmingham Tech Week. How was that for you, being kind of in a slightly different role now than you've been in previously?
I think doing recruitment, you get a bit of purpose when you help someone find that job. I think when you've done it over 250, 300 times, or God knows, actually, it's probably a lot more than that. It wasn't. I loved it. I think it's been daunting, going in 14 years doing one job. You know everything about it, you become an expert in it. To then have to completely throw yourself in something very different. It's been very yeah, it's been daunting, shall we say, to say the least. But it's refreshing because the purpose of what the company do, I'm sure we'll be able to touch on it, is really up my street. And you've known me for the times and actually the moments where I've been doing that as opposed to the recruitment hat on. You've
Mm,
always met me with the other hat on. And I think that was the big driver, really. It was about time that I fully jumped into this world.
mm. So what kind of insights do you think you brought from the work that you did with the Brum Muse and around Birmingham and the West Midlands generally that kind of enhanced your role now?
Do you know what it is for me? Is that when I created the Brum Muse, it was about action. It wasn't about talking. And
Mm,
I created that round table initially. You might have heard about it, and that's how I kind of started to educate myself on what's this digital skills thing. Which, let's be frank, 5 years later, people are still using that terminology, not really understanding what
mm,
that actually means. But
mm,
the focus of the Brum Muse, when having those initial round tables, broke into three sort of core areas: digital inclusion, access, and then how can we combine young people, or the next generation, or career changers, or whoever the communities are that we're looking to work to, how can we connect them best in having those conversations with industry, or understanding how could they get into technology and what does technology break down to. But more importantly, that you don't need to be technical to work in technology. And
yeah.
that is a big factor. And I think it's very obvious that the narrative is painted in a way that you have to do computer science to do
Mm,
this, which I
mm,
understand. Computer science is relevant for certain types of jobs, but you don't have to be this. And that's what the Brum Muse kind of got me there. But the biggest thing really was actions. I got invited to so many round tables after a round table after round table. You go to this round table, and I'm like, what? Then what? And it got to the point where I just stopped doing round tables because I was just like, these round tables aren't actually acting it. So I wanted to create this big vehicle with all the people in there, all being drivers, all having a part to play. And then I was just the fuel in making that vehicle move. That's how I sort of always painted the Brum Muse.
mm. And you did some great events at iCentrum and other places. Which of those events really did you find most enjoyable?
But it obviously was the tech showcase, wasn't it? I mean, we all know what the tech showcase brought. It brought cupcakes being thrown from the heights of what was it, the fourth floor by kids. But look, kids are just going to be kids. Like we were all kids at one point, and to say that we never misbehaved at one point is a lie. That tech showcase was in line with what the region wanted to do. The region said, we want to reach out to deprived areas of our city, and we want to bring those school children or those college students to our hubs so they can connect with tech companies. That was the brief. Okay, well, I did it. We can't then moan about it because that's ultimately what we said we were going to do. But ultimately, we had 30 plus tech companies or gaming companies. The rule was simple. You had to have some form of technology that was able to be interacted with, or you could touch and play with or try out. That was the one thing. And then I brought, I think, over 300 students from across Birmingham. And then, took them out of school for half a day or a day in some cases. They attended other workshops that we were running in silo with the day. And they left that day wanting to know more, right? That was it. And I spoke to people. I'm sure there was some bias or whatnot, but they were saying to me, it was by far the best day of the of Birmingham Tech Week in 2022. And that was fun. But I've done some other really cool things, previously. So, but for me, it's about like how can, rather than sit there and listen to talks, because we all know that I've got that ADHD where I'm sat and I cannot listen to talks for more than 40 minutes. Like that is it. I just get itchy and I'm completely gone. I'm distracted. We all know that a lot of young people are not adhering to being sat there and being taught things. And this is why school doesn't work for everyone, right? But I think it's about that sort of that side. How can we get them to really interact and leave something with an experience and a memory, but also feeling inspired?
Brilliant. It'd be interesting. We generally get our guests to talk about how they got started in the digital world. So do you mind kind of going back in your career and sort of where did you start from and what kind of inspired you to get involved?
Yeah, so I was one of those kids that used to take things apart. I wouldn't call myself techie, but I would call myself inquisitive. So the only way you can be inquisitive, when back in the day I had a library or my granddad's encyclopedia collection. That was my only, or if you remember in Carter, Carter?
Yes, very well.
That was my resources, right? It's not like now where you've got TikTok, Google, YouTube, all these other things to get through. But there was a nostalgia about that, right? You'd want to take things apart to see what did that do, and that's how it started. It started with my dad's old VHS player, and then as I got older, I put I'm ashamed to admit it, but I did have a subwoofer and an amp and a number of 6x9s in my car when I was at college, and was one of those kids where things were booming as you drove down the street. But then I learned how to do that, and then we fiberglassed this, this surround, and it was fun. It was fun. Me and my best mate, we used to get up to all sorts during the summer holidays, but it was physically working on projects that we were just interested in. And then it got into the tech world. I had to have the latest phone. I was always interested to see what this was and that's, but I was never techie in that sense of the word. If you gave me a line of code, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. But I'm more your hands-on sort of engineer type person, if you like. And then that's how I kind of got into tech recruitment, I suppose, as an industry, because I knew I was interested in it. And then now as a modern human like we all are, I use YouTube for everything. So baking bread is a science, right? But I didn't know how to bake bread until I was in COVID. Like a lot of bakers, they got born out of COVID, and I use YouTube. Like I watch people using how to bake watching different YouTube videos, and that is how I've learned so many other trades that I've done. I built my own barbecue out in my garden. YouTube, it's how to lay bricks. YouTube, it's all of these things. So we utilize digital, but it doesn't mean that you're having to be a technical person, and that goes to be what's this new thing, being a YouTube, not a YouTube, a social media influencer, which encompasses all of them, and that's a thing. I can edit videos, learn how to do that via YouTube. I mean, it's that's how it spun out, and that's where I kind of got the bug, with wanting to know what was going on what's out there, and I probably know 2% of what's going on in the tech and digital world. It's moving that fast.
And how do you think we can build that confidence of like building on the curiosity of young people? Because for me, that's what I see a lot of, a lack of confidence in the people I'm trying to work with and support. Where does that come from, do you think? What's in your background that gives you that confidence?
I think I go back to the word being inquisitive. I think it's a soft skill, first of all, because what you're saying here is I don't know something. So I've got a problem, I've got a challenge. How do I find the answer? And I think there's a bit of a problem with the education system. I'll say it. I'll put it out there, because I think kids are having to be celebrated at whatever stage or of success or that they are at school, which I think is a bit of a problem, because we're not giving them the energy or we need to give them can I say rocket? We need to give them that rocket, however we want to use that analogy, to kind of go, well, actually, that isn't good enough. So how can I become better? And I think that there's a couple of factors around this, but I do think that schools are completely stretched. So it's very difficult to offer that time to each individual child to understand what their motivations are, or if they don't have any motivations, how do we motivate them? But I went to my young kids' sports day, and you don't get that first, second, third anymore. There's even a fourth, fifth, sixth, from what I understand. But in schools, there's a 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, all the way down to how many pupils there are in a school. And I think that we need to work on soft skills. I think soft skills is a really big factor. And I put problem solving and inquisitiveness in that bracket. I just don't think we're giving them that free range, because I don't think that there's time. But also, where does it go then? If you give them free rein, it goes. There's no barriers, right? So if you say solve this maths problem, but you can use Google, well, of course you're going to Google the answer, right? So I get that, but I just think that we're not utilizing the right things within what we've got, tools, should we say, that to sort of. There's too many blurred lines, if that makes sense.
So what would you, if you were in charge of the education system, how would it be looking? What would you be doing to make things different?
Oh, how long have we got? Right, I think the biggest thing here is that there's this thing called CAS, which you might have heard of, which is computing at schools.
Okay.
So back in the day, if you remember, they used to teach PE teachers how to do another subject. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
So I remember my PE teacher, he taught history. And there was another one that taught something bizarre like art, which I could never get my head around. His name was Mr. Parker. It's like, you're the least arty person ever, but there was a need. This is the same thing within technology. And you can't put the T in STEM if we're not going to invest the same amount of effort into science and as you would do technology. But similarly, there's a shortage of teachers that can teach these things. There's two big things for this, really, is technology moves so fast that the curriculum gets left behind. And that's period, wherever, primary, secondary, college, university. So I would be looking at ways that we can incorporate what I would say work, some sort of, not work experience, because that's obviously already there, but where they are applying theory and they're having to do something that's real life in the curriculum. So you apply this theory and then you go, okay, now here's an actual real life project we're going to get on. That might be coming from industry, might be coming from, I don't know, a boot camp, something that's real life, that you apply this theory that gets them up to speed quicker. And that can be applied in anything.
Yeah. I like the sound of that. Practical applications, which would benefit industry as well because we'd both be learning.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. Mm,
Because one of the big things I found out when I did recruitment is that the biggest reason a grad did not get a job wasn't that they couldn't necessarily do it because they had no experience to do it, right? But was that actually everything was theory led, but they had no soft skills. Now, if you put industry project, if I go to, I don't know, let's call out a big brand in Birmingham, let's go to KPMG or your PwC and go, okay, you come in and work with a school at one touch point every half term, right? You use, I don't know what you want, your volunteer day. They come in and they work with the kids on a half day, or what we call let's say an industry day, which there's some really fantastic colleges that do this sort of concept. For example, Joseph Chamberlain College, yeah, perfect example. Get these industry people in, you do it. And instead of it being once a year, how about we do it once half a term? Or you want to start a little bit earlier? Well, we'll do once. So yeah, Christmas, that winter, that autumn term, that winter or that spring winter term, and then that summer term. Right, 3 touch points. That's 3 more touch points than you would usually do. Given that project, suddenly they've got something that they can put on their CV. Right, that student or that group of students already now above that set of students that aren't doing it. Right, extracurricular activities. Can we run something? It's actually something that did a plug, something we're working on at the moment called a mega hub, where we are bringing different students from different schools across the city in line, and then they have these touch points. They learn about cyber, e-gaming, and they learn about AI, right? Well, already they've got more touch points than they had before. We're doing little things that can affect change quickly.
yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. But I just think, resources in schools and colleges, they are just so under-resourced, aren't they? I mean, let's be frank. But what can we do to help collaborate, join those dots that can make this, a reality? Instead of saying we're going to do it or doing it once a year and then putting it all on social, look how amazing I am. Because that's how I felt. And I never thought I was amazing, by the way. I got all this pat on the shoulder. But then I'm like, but and what? Like, I'm not, I don't care. Like, it's that I've got this massive pat on the back. That's not what it's about. I want those kids, those young people to get pats on the back. Like, what can we do now to have consistency? And that's the thing, because you have a boot camp ends, then what?
Yeah.
This is what I'm always about. It's like, then what? Like, we can always do more.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right about the pipelines and stuff because, the people I'm supporting at my work, my kind of paid work, is all about we're at the very. If you look at the digital inclusion scale, I'm looking at the 0 to 7s where people don't use the internet because they haven't got a device or data or connectivity, for example. And if they have those, they don't have digital skills or confidence or the tech support that they need to make something happen. So if something goes wrong, they just get scared and they just put it on the shelf and they don't go back to it. So, I'm kind of I'd be the people I'm supporting would be the pipeline for you for the kind of work that you're doing and the colleges are doing, which is what we need to see happen. But as you say, consistently, because if people consistently aren't having access to devices, then they're just not going to build up that kind of familiarity with stuff that we take for granted. So kind of as someone that's interested in kind of diverse and less served communities, do you see particular things there that you think need addressing as well?
Yeah, I do. It's bizarrely. So my dad used to work for. He was a civil servant, and he worked for Access to Work. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he always moans now because he goes, I just don't think it's what it was before. But that's a lot to be said about a lot of things. But he was very passionate about it. I never knew he did this because he's basically working in that sort of recruitment arm without me even noticing all these times, right? And he started at 21 when he first moved it, and he finished and retired doing that job. So that was his job, like period. Access to Work for your Vodafones, working with your HR managers, all this sorts of cool stuff, right? But I think when I talk to him about it now as an adult, and he talks about it, it was the same issues, right? It was yes, there was issues with funding and stuff, but having basis access to I don't know if you were you're visually impaired or you should get a screen. You should get a certain screen with a certain visor, with a certain keyboard that would help you do your job because you can do the job. So why can't you have the tools to do that job? and employers making excuses that they can't provide those tools, right? So already you're not inclusive, and there's no access to work because you're not providing these things. And honestly, some of the stories you would tell me about going into these big corporates, just little things like no ramp up the stairs. So as in, when I say the stairs, I'm talking about the first 2 steps to get into the building. I'm not, I'm not talking about, and where you still go to some buildings these days and you can't see the access, right? But already that is a hurdle. So that's something that is a step, a big issue that's always been in the system, and it's periodly still in the system, which is shocking. It's shocking, right? But then the second thing is obviously devices now, and they're not affordable if we're being honest. So why can't we ring fence things like getting these dongles for Wi-Fi? There should be money that is given out to schools and to families, for non-schools as well. That ring fence money should give them access in terms of the connectivity, because sometimes we forget about that, and then we need something in terms of devices, because when you talk about these sort of families of 4+, and you've got 4 kids that all go to school, and there's one device that they're sharing between them, how are 4 kids getting their homework done? The likelihood is they're not doing their homework, right? So which means that they're getting left behind, or already they're being left behind. So they're not. It's not a level playing field. So when people talk about level playing fields, we need to go back as to the reasons why you need the devices. And little stories of that are perfect examples. And I don't know if you heard the story during COVID. Quickly tell you it. There was a family of 4. The dad was the only one that had a smartphone. He used to work shifts. So the time he got home usually was sometimes around 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. And these kids had to wait for that device in order to do start doing their homework. And there was one of those kids was up to 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning, waiting for their turn to get on that device to go and do this piece of homework. It's unbelievable. And yet I saw an advert on Currys yesterday, right? That there's a Chromebook on offer from $299 to $119 at the moment, right? That's £119. I reckon there'll be some businesses in Birmingham that would go, well, I'll buy 10 of those. What's that? Well, just under £1,500. That's nothing to some corporates. But it's the dots, right, Pauline? It's the dots. People don't talk. They have their siloed conversations. I want to do this, and then suddenly nothing happens because the reality is they don't know how to do it or whatever. So going back to your question, access is about how we can actually generally give them the tools to start with before we can even talk about access.
Absolutely. I mean, it's some kind of work I'm doing, but making the pipeline work so that there's no need for projects like mine to kind of be stepping in when it should be a standard sort of thing. It should be the kind of thing you're issued with at birth, nearly. And then you have a device that grows with you as you age. That's what you need, because people need them at all ages of their lives now. The world's increasingly becoming driven by tech and apps, and people, are being forced to go online. People who never wanted to be online. So there's a push and a pull factor, and the tech companies themselves don't always make it easy, do they, for people? They don't develop technology with the end user in mind. Often it's kind of tech bros who want to make it shiny and glossy and sort of work fast, but they don't think about this elderly person whose eyesight might be failing, whose fingers might not be as dexterous as they once were. They might need voice control for devices and stuff like that. That's the kind of thing that I kind of think about as well when I'm thinking about my work and the development of it. And then you get companies who will kind of donate devices, but it's on ad hoc and it's not consistent, so you can't count on that as a source. There's a national data bank, there's a national device bank, and Birmingham has its own versions of those as well. But again, it's getting the pipeline sorted out, and there isn't a constant stream of devices, so it's difficult.
Do you think it's like a fad though, these things, right? You remember, because I remember I did the laptops for the kids in, with the, the station pub in Kings Heath. And Darren, he turned it into a food bank, if you remember. And I said, well, can we turn it into a laptop bank or device bank? And he was like, yeah, absolutely, let's do that. And people want to help. It's just knowing it was just the right timing for me to make that happen. But it was a fad. You remember we were talking about it. Oh, we need laptops. If we don't talk about it, and I'm not going to say I'm going to blame the media, but I'm going to blame the media. We only hear what we get told or what we watch, and if we don't consistently talk about these things, we forget about them being an issue. It's an issue. It's George Floyd all over. It's forgotten about suddenly, and then we're back like another cycle again. It's sad sometimes, but it's the narrative that get created in our society. And if you don't talk about it, which you passionately talk about it all the time, it's only who you're talking about to that hear about it. And it's just a shame, really, because if people put a massive display on that wasn't, I don't know, on the flyover the A38, instead of it being an aftershave advert, and they put 4,000 kids don't have access to devices and the internet. And what's that going to cost? Not hardly any money, but you won't, because that's just not what's going to happen. But can you imagine the change that would happen from that many people seeing that voice?
Yeah.
It's just frustrating, because
it is when, as you say, the investment wouldn't be huge, but it would make a huge difference to people's lives if it was taken for granted. If you could just take it for granted. It's something that's a constant with me. But there are some great organizations out there. Digital Unite, for example, one of we often have we sometimes have the CEO on the program, and she talks about corporate programs of digital champions, where people working in a corporate like Capgemini, for example, develop a program so that their staff can help people to be more digitally savvy and kind of be supported. And I know they're working on more programs for 2025. So if every company made it a part of the company practice to teach digital skills as a and to have the teaching of digital skills as a thing that they do, that all staff do, kind of the same way as they have HR and process your expenses and something. You just build it into your work life, that you have some time in the week or month when you help somebody else. And lots of us are doing it anyway. If people aren't digital champions or don't consider themselves to be digital champions, but they've helped somebody with an online thing during the month, they probably are a digital champion. They just don't realize it. So I want to normalize that. I want to make it, why are you not why do you not consider yourself a digital champion? If you've helped somebody, you are, and please talk about it and encourage other people to do it as well.
Yeah, the only thing is you only know what you don't know, and vice versa. But I think in IN4.0, the company I've joined, what I love is that they've got two types, where they're focusing on the early careers, or you're working with universities, third years, helping them to upskill in certain areas. And our communities are focused in those first and family, and coming from underrepresented backgrounds, disadvantaged backgrounds. That's our focus. That's our community. But working with them, so they can, giving them that sort of experience through either our boot camps, but then a real life project with these industry partners. But also, we're working with companies to upskill their own staff. Having conversations with big companies that you would think, whoa, wouldn't you know that? But they don't. So we're helping them with upskilling in AI, helping whatever that looks like. So what we call a modern worker program. And so we've got these sort of different programs where we know that people, they need the support, but there's just an assumption, well, they are a tech company, so they would know this, right? But they don't. Gen AI has completely changed everything a little bit on its head. And there's so much in that. And it's again, it's a buzzword. It was the buzzword of Birmingham Tech Week, as you all know. So it's getting plowed around, but it breaks down in so many different areas, and which are just as big as the next one. So there's so much for people to learn, and I think it's important that people realise that it's okay to not know something.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like your company, your new company, has a view that's not common. I would say, yeah, yet, and will bring something very fresh to the whole ecosystem. So, what ways are you hoping to involve people, and what can programs like ours help to promote, that you're doing?
Yeah, I think so. I think the big thing really at the moment is for us is outcomes. So when I say an outcome, it's like, okay, so you've got your third year set of computer science students, right? And we all know what that graduate market is, and it has been for several years. On average, it's taking them 6+ months for a graduate to get a job, and even then, a lot of those people that have done a discipline are not getting into that industry. So what we're looking to do is work with sort of corporate companies and sort of small organizations as well, especially in our region, to get them understanding that we want to get them to, from a CSR point of view, the corporate social responsibility. If you've got volunteer days, we want you to come and spend some time with some of these young people. And we're doing things not just at university level, but we're actually doing, I think I touched at the start, something called a mega hub. And we're creating a mega hub regionally. And picture this: we've got Birmingham as their own e-sport team. These companies can come help with these days, so they can start to get these young people involved. And it tends to be year 7 to year 9, and then year 10, year 11 as they progress through the program. So we're having touch points for year 7 all the way through year 10, year 9, year 11. So regular touch points throughout the academic year, throughout those years. Year 10 and year 11, they'll get drop-in days. So they'll get to do like a day where we held at Aston Villa football ground. So really cool, iconic venues. And then what the vision is that they will then start being part of clubs. So this is like a super curriculum, but they're part of a club. So like we've got Kings Heath Panthers football team down the road. We've got Birmingham Esports Club, get their own logos. They'll be part of that process. They'll attend regional competitions against Wolverhampton, which we'll create. We're going to create these clubs. They'll then become in a regional league. They'll then go out to Manchester, play their teams. There'll be trophies. There'll be big sponsors. That's the vision. And that's a short-term vision, because our head office in Manchester, in Salford, already has the Manchester Esports Academy in our office. So it's already happening. We're just bringing it to this region.
Great.
So we're looking to have those conversations with industry organizations that might want to be part of that, local, and then those bigger sort of corporates that might want to really get involved with those volunteer days, running the workshops. But yeah, it's split around e-gaming, cyber, AI. So that's the mega hubs. And then we've got these programs with our third years, which gets them qualifications. So we're the only provider outside of London that is an AWS, Google, Microsoft, IBM, Cisco, Unity partner. So we run these programs with businesses and these students, and these universities that we're partnering up with, they will walk away with a certification. So it's not just come in, do a workshop, they will walk away with a certification, and then hopefully they'll walk away with a job after they've done all of those projects with these companies. So that's the outcome. And then from a game tech perspective, you'll like to hear, so that's just the techie side, the cloud software, AI, data. On the gaming side, we're working with students at the moment. So we'll run all these programs, so they'll get training on how to be an entrepreneur, how to set up their own company, and then we'll give them some freelance projects working with the gaming community. So currently having those conversations from gamification, so VR immersive led, but also Leamington Spa gaming companies and local gaming companies here to say, look, this is what the outcomes are, and then we'll give them those first 2 prongs on the ladder. So instead of it being, here's this degree, you've done it, off you'd go and get a job now, we're going to say, well, actually, we'll do this. We'll help you do this first steps here. And the freelance community, or the amount of freelance opportunities has completely scaled, tripled, because that's how games companies tend to work. And so we're giving them those opportunities. And for the startups get some resource here, and they're helping from a social value point of view. But hopefully they do a good job with them, and then they'll walk away with hopefully an opportunity to continue working with those businesses at the end.
Brilliant. Wow. That's so impressive, Dan. I'm so excited. You know, if you're involved, then it's obviously going to be very exciting. But it sounds like something that lots of people would want to be involved in, especially from the gaming point of view. I think gaming has a lot to offer digital inclusion. So yeah, I certainly want to. We should just keep an eye on that. Please let us know if you got any events that you'd like us to publicize. But I
Yeah,
think that
I
all
will. Well,
sounds very
there's one
exciting.
we're planning one at the moment, which I'll keep you front
Mm,
and center of mind
yeah,
for.
great.
Sure.
Swain, have you got a question for Dan or?
I don't think so. It's been very interesting to hear. Um, no, it's all great. It's from the point of view of young people and skills is really interesting, really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. So I expect to see Birmingham Tech Week next year full of this kind of this is the kind of thing I would like to see, practical applications where people are learning things that they can turn into work straight away, and yeah, less talking and more kind of action and making it happen.
Absolutely.
Brilliant, brilliant. We've got a few stories we picked up. We want to just refer to Dan before we finish. So please do feel free to comment as well. But the first one is I'm including it because it has a deadline of the 17th of November. It's a job. We don't normally promote jobs, but this one seemed like too exciting to leave to someone else to pick up. I think I picked this up probably on LinkedIn. It's a research lead on civic participation and digital inclusion at the Responsible Innovation Centre, part of the BBC Research and Development section. The Research and Innovation Centre, Responsible Innovation Centre is not somewhere I've heard of before. It's a new independent research centre hosted in BBC Research and Development, funded by UKRI, a non-governmental public body that directs UK research and innovation funding, and the RIC delivers research to generate timely evidence and critical insights on the social, editorial, and ethical challenges technology raises for public media, people, and society. So they're saying if you enjoy helping to successfully get new initiatives off the ground and have a passion for ensuring technology works for everyone, we want to hear from you. That sounds like a brilliant job. But I noticed in the criteria, Swain and Dan, that they want somebody with a PhD already. So
Definitely a proper academic research type role, for sure. So yeah, it'd be interesting
mm,
to see how that goes.
yeah, very interesting. So, hopefully some people we know will apply for it, and then we can have them on the show to talk about what they're planning to do. So keep an eye on that one. The next story is from the Northeast, and the headline is .UK supports digital inclusion through digital skills for displaced youth in the Northeast. And this company, Digital Opportunity Trust UK, in June and July this year, they celebrated the end of Digital Inclusion Northeast, a phase one project, and the first of the .UK serving communities in the UK. Phase one aimed to comprehensively understand the needs and challenges faced by displaced youth aged 18 to 35 in the northeast of England in acquiring digital skills. And they published the full report, but the findings were that there was the existing ecosystem. The research revealed a nuanced landscape of organisation services in the Northeast, which includes those offering housing, English language services, asylum seekers, case support, refugee integration services, and business and enterprise training. They found an ecosystem gap, so despite the diverse array of services available in the Northeast, they said there was a notable gap in terms of organisations offering digital skills training for entrepreneurship, remote work, and employability to prepare displaced youth for a successful transition. There were challenges faced by displaced youths, mental health disclosure, language barriers, limited access to devices, as we've been talking about, and connectivity issues emerged as significant hurdles for displaced youth to access and unlock essential digital skills. And the final point in the findings were challenges faced by service organisations. They said there was competition for funding stifles collaboration and partnership, negatively affecting the holistic development of displaced people. So the article goes on to say that phase one findings transitioned into the launch of phase two, supported by the Good Things Foundation Impact Grant, and has commenced focused on designing with users foundational digital skills for work. And they're partnering with various organizations where participants access three different learning pathways. The project, it says, while its success generated a lot of learnings for the .uk team, gathering insights, and the learnings and actions they've said are that onboarding should be made easier to encourage quick and frictionless sign-up, making the process more inviting for participants. There should be they're saying strict onboarding by cohort doesn't work. It's better to have a rolling registration to accommodate some participants better, coupled with the greater emphasis on the fact this is a joint initiative between the outreach partners, and it fostered a better understanding and collaboration. They said the hybrid learning approach was best supported by a peer-to-peer support model. So a use of interactive tools like WhatsApp groups and a more engaging learning management system were needed to strengthen the impact of the program. I'm a big fan of WhatsApp groups, setting them up all the time, including and LinkedIn groups now as well. Private LinkedIn groups can be very helpful. So they're collaborating to improve the automation. They're saying language accessibility can be improved. The course's English level needs to be assessed so it can be made easier for learners. And they're exploring the use of AI solutions to support learners' access. And the final 2 points of this item are, while the split between learners was 46% male and 54% female, a peer group of young females who can support each other and encourage their group participation was encouraged. The project achieved a good balance and will continue to focus on young women and build out this peer group. And finally, they said a full-time position dedicated to outreach will increase the effectiveness and impact of the project. So that sounds like similar to some of the work you're talking about, Dan, kind of getting people involved in the work that they're doing, getting young people involved in shaping their own work. I think will be effective and powerful.
It's funny, isn't it? Because that research is obviously really, really impressive. It's just you get different parts of the country just doing different things. It's like imagine if you shared the not necessarily, not everything's going to be the same in terms of the way you get the research from. I get that because of your demographic and it's going to potentially be different, but the principles and what comes out of it should be shared in just like one place rather than it being a policy, which is really hard to find. And then you can replicate it, because it seems like everyone does research in every different parts, don't they? And then it takes so long to implement a plan.
Well, funnily enough, the next item that we've got might actually contribute to that. It's a group I've picked up off LinkedIn called the Inclusive Digital Access Research Group. So it's a new group, and this apparently is a space for people committed to making digital access fair and inclusive. The goal is to connect, share, and learn from each other so we can better tackle digital barriers faced by people of all abilities. And it's a group for researchers, policymakers, educators, practitioners, advocates, and anyone passionate about digital inclusion. So yeah, I think there'll be scope there to encourage it so the sharing can happen. That we'd all like to see. Couple more things. The next one is an article entitled "Inclusive Digital Infrastructure Bridging the Global Connectivity Divide for a More Equitable Future." Again, something I picked up off LinkedIn. The article says, as the world becomes increasingly digital, over 2.7 billion people remain unconnected to the internet, creating a stark digital divide that limits opportunities for education, economic growth, and social equity. So they're saying it's a moral imperative to make the journey towards digital infrastructure and global connectivity happen. Ensuring digital inclusion can empower billions, fostering a future where all individuals, regardless of geographic or economic barriers, have the opportunity to participate in the global economy. And they have a report that could be useful to other people interested in getting involved in that. And our final item is from SCVO, our friends in Scotland, Scottish Council for Voluntary Organisations, and something very basic: understand the problem. What even is digital inclusion? A lot of people use the phrase, but they don't always, can explain what it means. And it refers to Scotland's Digital Inclusion Charter, whose first pledge is all about understanding. And it says, we commit to understanding digital exclusion and how it impacts the people we work with. It references that digital exclusion is a hidden inequality. Some 700,000 people in Scotland don't have the skills they need to get online, and 620,000 Scots can't afford to access the internet they need for daily life. And it says, but even then, these are only numbers. They don't explain the individual circumstances of people who are locked out from a world we all take for granted. So they're saying towards the end of that item, fulfilling the understanding pledge is all about familiarizing yourself with the issue. A lot of ways you can do this, like reading up on digital exclusion in your community and beyond. asking your staff and service users about their digital skills, developing a business case for embedding digital inclusion in what you do, and finally signing Scotland's Digital Inclusion Charter and demonstrating your commitment. And they encourage us all to get involved in that. And programs like this, hopefully, that bring these matters to people's attention are also helpful. I think the Digital Poverty Alliance also has a digital inclusion charter, Sweyn. I think we've talked about that previously as well.
We have, yes.
Again, that's something that we can encourage people to sign up to. And it looks like we've come to the end of our hour. Thank you very much, Dan, for joining us on the Dr. Tech Show. If people want to contact you after the show, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, just on LinkedIn, if you just search for Daniel Rodrigues, I'm sure there's actually quite a lot of those people, which is why I used to have the off. But yeah,
and there's a link to the correct Daniel Rodrigues in the description of this YouTube video. So you'll find
you got it.
Yeah, great. So thanks again for joining us, Dan. Best of luck with the new
Yes.
role. It sounds extremely exciting. I can't wait to hear more about it. Please do ask us if we can be supportive and useful. And thanks again, and see you soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.